Hello, how are you? Today I brought you a recipe for probiotic fermented chia that you are definitely going to love. It's a super easy recipe to make, excellent for your gut, to reduce inflammation, and to populate our body with beneficial bacteria, which is super important. This chia is very easy to prepare, super quick for you to make, and it requires just a few ingredients. You're going to love it, for sure. Stick around until the end, you won't want to miss this. It's great for adding to salads, yogurt, or juices. I'll explain everything to you. Remember, the ingredients and their quantities will be listed below in the description, so you can make this at home. So, the first thing I have here is my jar with water, and I just want to explain to you a bit better how I prepared it. That's because it's a key step. So, ideally, when we're going to use a jar for fermentation, you should wash it thoroughly. Preferably a glass jar like this. You should wash it well with soap and water and rinse a lot. Then, you put it in a pot that's boiling and leave it there for about 3 to 5 minutes, right? In this way, basically, you can remove any kind of bacteria, any kind of dirt that might be there. You do this with the jar, and you do it with the lid as well, where the fermentation will take place. That's because sometimes we say, oh, I just cleaned it with my sponge, with water, and then the dish soap. But the sponge can have bacteria, right? So it might not be completely clean. So it's always better to boil it to minimize the risk of having the growth of other bacteria that aren't good, right? So your chia can ferment. So now with this water, I'm going to add the chia seeds. And the coolest thing about this fermentation is that we only need these two ingredients, the water itself and the chia. Chia already brings benefits on its own, even if you don't ferment it or make it probiotic. It brings many benefits to our health because it's a seed rich in omega-3 precursors. So, it is naturally anti-inflammatory on its own, even if you eat it raw. It contains fiber, has a low glycemic index, helps with satiety, and forms this gelatin, this gel, this mucilage, which helps lower the glycemic index of the meal, increase satiety, and slow down the absorption of all the food. So chia by itself is already wonderful. When we ferment it, we make beneficial bacteria grow, which will colonize our gut. And that's when things get even better, it becomes even more powerful. Because on top of everything, you can prevent or even help treat some types of dysbiosis as a complementary approach. When you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria in the gut, we can improve the bacterial population, the microorganisms in our gut, and our digestive tract as a whole. Not just the gut, you know? So, look, just while I was talking to you, you can see that the chia is absorbing the liquid and forming a gel, a mucilage. Now, on camera, it's a bit harder to see, but it's important that if you're going to let it fermenting, you make sure that all the seeds are in the water, that they're all covered by water. See? None of them should be stuck here. So, we keep stirring here, making sure everything is right, and then what am I going to do next? This here, I'm just going to show you. Later, I'll do it carefully, little by little. But what am I going to do right now? I'm going to wait about 10 or 15 minutes to make sure it hydrates a little more before I set it to ferment. So, just wait a little longer, it's almost ready, and I'll show you the secret trick, okay? Look, another 10 minutes have passed, and you can see it's really well hydrated. And then, before I set it to ferment, I'm just gonna give it one last stir, which helps keep it from sticking too much. And I'll check to make sure there aren't any pieces of chia left, right? No chia left on top here? There isn't. Okay, great, everything's good. So now what do? We let this ferment. Oh, there's a piece here, I almost missed it. So, what do? We let this ferment here, the usual way, right? I'm going to grab a cloth here, actually a paper towel, and I'm going to put the lid over the top of my jar. And I'll wait a few days for this to happen. Never screw the lid on the jar for fermentation, because that can be dangerous. I'm just going to cover it here so no bugs or anything land on it, right? So, I'll wait a few days and soon I'll come back to show you how it turned out. Coming back here now with my fermented chia. You can wait a few days, from 2 to 4 days. This one here took 2 days. I'll show you how it looks because it's a little different from other fermented foods. Look, you can see there are some little bubbles on top. I don't know if you can see it, but look, it turns into a kind of gel. And since it has this ability to gel, to form this mucilage, it won't get as fermented, as fizzy, let's say. But there are some little bubbles here. See, compared to if you made, for example, a fermented dough or fermented cabbage. You can see here, there are some little bubbles. They're really small, which shows that fermentation happened. But you can't expect it to be like other fermented foods. For example, it usually smells like bread yeast. Chia doesn't do that. So, what you really need to look for is whether these tiny bubbles appear after a while, about 2 to 4 days. It depends on where you live and whether it's warmer there or not. Look, I've got some banana here to show you how you can enjoy this chia. And of course, remember that you'll also get the benefits of hydrated chia here, not just fermented chia. I brought this option here for those who are vegan, but you can add it to a green juice, a smoothie, or really anything you want. And there's also another option here that you might like if you usually eat yogurt or things like that, which is to add to your own plain yogurt with some fruit. I also put some banana here as an example. It could be a good option. Let me know, how are you going to add fermented and hydrated chia to your daily diet? Look, I'm going to try it here with my yogurt. There's a recipe for plain yogurt. There's kefir, fermented apple, onion. I have other great probiotic recipes too, and you can mix and match them or combine two like I'm doing here. Remember that this wonderful food can be part of your breakfast or snack routine. Let's try it. Ooh. It's really interesting. Of all the probiotics that I've already prepared here, this one has the mildest flavor. Very easy to consume. Honestly, I think it doesn't even have a taste. Chia is a seed with a really neutral flavor. And when it ferments, like I said, it doesn't end up with that yeasty taste. So it's an excellent option. Try it out and you'll definitely love it. It's really good. Let me even grab a little more. There's a lot here. See you next time. Bye.